George Orwell had the Ministry of Truth. Joe Biden's America has the Department of Justice. That's the topic of today's Bold and Blunt. And I'm your host, Cheryl Chumley, giving you a Christian conservative look at today's news, politics, culture, and events. Let's count all the ways that this White House administration, this Joe Biden White House administration, along with Joe Biden's law enforcement agents, have done the exact opposite of what they're supposed to do. Akin to the Ministry of Truth in George Orwell's 1984, actually being dedicated to advancing lies and government narratives and government propaganda, so too it seems today's Department of Justice, which is really more about advancing anti-Trump injustices. Never mind the law enforcement agents who are supposed to be in office to uphold the law. What they're really doing, it seems, if you look at Mar-a-Lago in recent days, the exact opposite. Upholding political ambitions, behaving more like tyrannical operatives for the far left than defenders of the Constitution, defenders of the rule of law. This is the new America, more akin to police state governance than constitutional limited government, law and order. And guess what? The media is one of the biggest players in this new police state world order. The lawless GOP response to the raid at Mar-a-Lago, one New York Times writer put out there in the days after Donald Trump's private residence was raided by FBI agents. And it's interesting now the left is seizing hold of that word raid and saying, well, it's not a raid. They served a warrant. It's all lawful and orderly. Really? Let's read from this piece quickly. With the disclosure that the FBI searched his winter palace at Mar-a-Lago. Listen to the language there. Palace, as if Trump behaves like a king. Donald Trump has doubled down on his attacks on law enforcement and on law itself. Boy, there's a lot to unpack there just in that very first sentence, isn't it? I mean, talk about a political operative. Talk about a schooled, skilled, professional propagandist. And many in the GOP, Caroline Fredrickson continues to write in this New York Times piece, many in the GOP establishment are backing him up. Not necessarily because they truly believe him to be innocent, but because being seen to be persecuted by federal officers is now a badge of honor in the Republican Party. Isn't it curious how the left can persecute somebody, and then when the victims of the persecution decry the persecution, that same left condemns the complaints. I mean, this is a new level of un-American, anti-American that's taken over the Democrat Party with their partners in the media. Because remember, the Democrats couldn't be so successful if they didn't also have the media in their pockets. I don't know which is more evil, Democrat Party leadership or the mainstream media. The media types at the New York Times, CNN, MSNBC. Which are worse? That's probably a good topic for another Bold and Blunt segment on a different day. But today I want to talk about this new travesty called justice, which is really injustice, that the Joe Biden administration is happily setting in motion. And before I get into more of that, I want to quickly mention that if you like Bold and Blunt, you can get Bold and Blunt at edify.app. That is the online platform for faith-based podcasts. You can also get Bold and Blunt anywhere podcasts are offered, but especially at washingtontimes.com, where I write daily on issues of importance facing Americans specifically about things that are stealing our individual liberties from a Christian conservative perspective, you can go to WashingtonTimes.com and sign up to receive my 3 times a week newsletter there. It comes out Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, delivered right to your email box in time for the lunch hour. And you'll get within that newsletter all my commentaries as well as my twice weekly Tuesday and Thursday Bold and Blunt podcast. Just go to WashingtonTimes.com, scroll to the bottom of the page there. There's a link to a newsletter section. Click on it, and it's just a short search. You'll find my name, click on it, and follow the directions, and boom, you'll be signed up. And I sure do appreciate those who are already regular listeners of Bold and Blunt or subscribers to my newsletter. So, what's your take on the FBI right now? And when I say right now, I'm recording this a few hours before it airs, but I doubt very much. I think it's going to be safe to say that the FBI, as I record and as you listen hours later, hasn't done much in terms of releasing information about A, exactly what they're looking for at Mar-a-Lago, or B, why they're looking for it when they could have just simply asked for it. Because according to several reports, including ones in mainstream media like NBC News, Trump's attorneys were already working with archives people and federal law enforcement officials to give back some of the documents that they carried with them, that Team Trump carried with them when they left the White House and went back to Mar-a-Lago. They were already in discussion, so why not just simply continue discussions and say, hey, now we'd like to ask for this back? No, why do that when you can unleash the full force and power of the federal law enforcement on a private citizen, which Trump is right now, right? And so's his family. Why request information? Why request documents when you can create this circus show of sending in 30 or so federal law enforcement agents, FBI agents, to lock down for, 8-9 hours, a private residence of a former president who, let's remember, may be running again in 2024 against the feckless, brain-dead Joe Biden, who's sitting in office right now and who is overseeing the FBI agents who conducted this raid, served this warrant. So why do that when you can create this circus show, feeding into the media's narrative that Trump's a crook, Trump's a crook, Trump's a crook, he must be arrested? Well, the media certainly got its talking points now, because no matter what the Justice Department and the FBI release in terms of recovered documents from Trump's home, the question is still going to linger in the air. Can we trust what the FBI and Justice Department are telling us in terms of what they uncovered or discovered among Trump's documents? Who's to say the FBI didn't plant things? They wouldn't let Trump's attorneys stay and watch as the raid, as the execution of the warrant was conducted. They requested, according to reports in the Daily Mail citing Eric Trump, they requested that the security cameras at the residence be turned off. Those staffers reportedly refused to do that. So who's to say? Who's to say if the information that they bring forward finally, ultimately, who knows when, but the information that they finally bring forward is true or not? They could say they found anything, and American citizens would be none the wiser. See, the thing with law enforcement is you have to trust. You have to have trust in the law enforcement system, and you have to have trust in the law enforcers themselves. And right now, this Justice Department under Merrick Garland and these FBI agents under Christopher Wray, all under Joe Biden, all under the anti-Trump Joe Biden, have done very little to show that they are worthy of Americans trust? Why should we trust what the FBI says now? Why should we trust what justice says? Why should we trust what Democrats say, for crying out loud? For 3 years, Democrats sat there, Russia, 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 collusion, collusion, collusion. My gosh, they were trying to impeach Donald Trump before he was even inaugurated. Before he ever did any impeachable offense, they were calling for his head on the platter. And then when he got out of office, they were going after him to impeach him. They're still trying to impeach him. I mean, my goodness, how many times can you impeach both a sitting president and a former president? That's how scared they are of Donald Trump. That shows how frightened the left is of Donald Trump. They have to go after him even as a private citizen because they have to make dang well sure that he will not try to run in 2024. Well, let's make that win in 2024 because if Joe Biden's running again, if Kamala Harris is the candidate, if Gavin Newsom out in California is the Democrats' pick to run, toast. They don't have a chance. I mean, you could run my dog Mickey, against Joe Biden, and my dog Mickey would give him a good run for his money. So Donald Trump, who has been in recent months going around the nation holding rallies that bring in numbers of supporters that are similar, if not even greater, than the numbers he brought in during his 2015-2016 campaign season. Think how scared the Democrats, the leftists, the Davos crowd, the World Economic Forum, the great resetters of the world, think how frightened they are of that when they see Donald Trump's favor has hardly fallen. As a matter of fact, it's actually risen if you look at some of the voting blocks that have fled. I think fled is the right word here. Fled Joe Biden. Hispanics, younger voters, Asians, blacks, all the normal, traditional, reliant Democrat voters. Democrats are like biting their nails in fear because they're worried that these voters that they normally rely on to turn out in droves may consider somebody like Donald Trump, may consider a MAGA type, an America First type, because they look around at their grocery shelves, they look around at the Walmart shelves in the baby section, and they see emptiness. They wonder, where's the baby formula? They're paying prices for food that they haven't ever before paid for in some instances, depending on their ages. Because prices of food have been kept pretty low until Joe Biden has come along and inflation has driven them up. They go to the gas pumps and they're paying double what they were just paying a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. I mean, Americans aren't that stupid and their memories aren't that short. When you go to the gas pump under Donald Trump and you were paying $35 to fill it up, $40 to fill it up on premium, and you go to the gas pump under Joe Biden and you're paying $60, $80 to fill that same car up. Americans aren't stupid enough to believe that their gas tanks magically expanded, maybe due to climate change. They're not stupid enough to buy into that. That the heat of the summer, that climate change emissions, that CO2 emissions have somehow expanded their gas tanks. They're not that dumb. They know it's because of Democrat policies, Joe Biden policies. And now here comes the boot-stomping good time FBI and Justice Department to try and trash Donald Trump even more. Well, the American people are not going to have any of it. Only the far, far, far left wing of the Democrat Party is in support of this execution of warrant at Mar-a-Lago. It's just not popular with the American people to weaponize law enforcement at the federal level to go after private citizens because Americans know If the FBI can do this to a former president of the United States, think what the FBI would do to you and me. That's a scary thought. And that's why Donald Trump is quite right when he says these are dark times. And I have a guest with me today who knows full well what it feels like to be attacked politically by those of the left. And even those who are supposed to be in her own political party. Her name is Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she's here to talk about the execution of warrant on Donald Trump's residence in Florida and what that means for the future of American freedoms. Congresswoman, thank you so much for being on Bold and Blunt. I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you so much for having me on today.
I'm betting you have some reaction to what's taking place with the FBI at Trump's house in Florida. Care to comment?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, I think I echo the sentiment of the American people, and that just everyone is absolutely shocked at what we saw. We've never seen anything like it in American history, where the executive branch has weaponized the Department of Justice and the FBI to target their political enemies. And the FBI raiding President Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago should not have happened. It was completely unnecessary and such a disgusting abuse of power coming directly from the White House. That was the only place it could have come from. But they have been doing this to him since the beginning. It all started with Trump Tower. They wiretapped Trump Tower. That started in the Obama administration, and the Hillary Clinton campaign putting out the Christopher Steele dossier that launched the Russia hoax. Mark Elias, her attorney with Perkins and Coie, totally helping that happen. And then even last night, Mark Elias tweeting out the ultimate goal of what they're trying to do here using a code of law. 2071 is the code that he quoted. And the whole purpose is to make it where President Trump is disqualified from ever holding office again. That's their ultimate goal. They are more terrified of a second Trump presidency than anything else. What they should be scared of is they should be scared of a nuclear war with Russia or a nuclear war with China. They should be terrified about the poisonous fentanyl and terrorists coming across our border that's wide open. They should be scared of the crime that's gotten out of control and the inflation that just keeps going up here in America. And they should be scared of voters coming in November, because I think voters are going to go to the polls and take this out on them, and they should. It should just never happen.
I agree. And I want to talk about a little bit more about what you said about the left being terrified of Donald Trump and explore that a little bit more. But I wanted to go back to something you touched upon. You know, when I saw this raid taking place, and I'm not really surprised by much that the left does, but my first reaction was, wow. And I think it was Chuck Schumer who said, if you go after the deep state, if you go after intel, they have 6 ways from Sunday, or whatever the saying is, to get back at you. And I believe this is what's taking place against Donald Trump, because he called out the deep state specifically.
Oh, yeah, of course he did. And you know what he did? When he got to Washington the first time, he didn't know anyone. And he entered the White House not knowing who his enemies were and not knowing who his friends were because they all acted the same. But over that 4 years, he found out. And he found out he's got a whole list, and we know exactly who the enemies are, the enemies within in Washington, D.C. and our government. And he is on a mission to gut those agencies and get rid of these unelected bureaucrats that think they hold more power than anyone. And President Trump is the only one that we can trust to get that job done. And this is why they're trying to do everything they can to stop him, because they know that he's going to finish the job in a second Trump presidency.
And the fear, the terror that the left feels against Donald Trump, it's not just in America. It's from the global governments, the global bureaucrats, the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab's, the Davos crowd, just cannot stomach the idea of a second Trump administration.
Oh, of course, because President Trump stands any other president has in history. And we're unified with him. Republicans like me in the House of Representatives, we firmly stand with President Trump. We firmly stand against the globalist agenda, the Klaus Schwab agenda with the World Economic Forum, and we have to do everything we can to stop it. But the Democrats are all in. They're completely in with this globalist plan, this globalist world order, liberal world order is what they call it, because that is what they're gearing up for. That's what this so-called Inflation Reduction Act is. That has nothing to do with inflation. The words climate and environment are 7 times higher inside that bill than the word inflation. It has nothing to do with reducing inflation. It has everything to do with serving the globalist lies about the climate that really puts, just lines the pockets of the elites and will send us back to the dark ages. It will hurt our energy needs. It'll cause rolling blackouts. But that's what that bill is all about, along with creating an IRS army that will be the weaponization of the IRS to target any of the regime's political enemies. And that's the American people. That's the scariest thing about it. They consider conservative Americans their political enemies, and they're willing to create this IRS army to take them out.
Yeah, we're headed towards some scary times because Joe Biden still has 2 years left in office. And I'm just curious, you yourself are always under attack. If you're not attacked as much as Donald Trump, you're a close second. You have to be. And I'm just wondering, when you see something like this, the FBI raiding Donald Trump's personal home, does that send you on high alert? Does that send you to making plans to move your own personal computer and maybe put your private papers in a lockbox somewhere, or does it at least put those ideas into mind?
Well, I tell you what, when I saw that on the news last night, and I was talking to everyone, of course, I said, they're coming for us next. Next thing you know, the FBI is going to show up at all of our houses, because that's their ultimate goal, to punish and persecute their political enemies and stop them. And I certainly am one of their top targets, and everyone knows it. They've seen it happen since I became a member of Congress. I am the most persecuted Republican member of Congress in the United States history. There's never been anything like it. In the same way, President Trump is the most persecuted president in United States history. And you know what? I have nothing to worry about. The FBI could show up at my house right now. I'm not even home, and they would find nothing. There is nothing in my house that I'm concerned about. I have no papers I'm concerned about. There's nothing on my computer I'm concerned about. My email, I hardly even use it, so why would I be concerned about that? I have nothing to hide because I've done nothing wrong. I mean, I'm also the only member of Congress that was actually put on the witness stand by some radical hard leftist organization, not even from Georgia, trying to take my name off the ballot. I'm the only member of Congress that's been on the witness stand under oath about January 6th, which is insane, where they're accusing me of being an insurrectionist, which is the most insulting lie anyone could ever throw at me. I love my country, and I'm literally doing everything I can to save it. But yeah, I think everyone knows it. Everyone knows that, yeah, the FBI may show up at our house next, and the American people feel the same way. This has put people on alert like never in history. People are so angry and upset and actually truly fearful of our government, which has become tyrannical.
And I was listening to you talk, and I certainly didn't mean to intimate that you have done anything wrong. My logic behind asking the question was simply that the FBI, when you speak out against the Democrat globalist vision, the FBI has become weaponized, and you would certainly seem to be one that could be on a hit list for the FBI now to raid your own home. So I'm just curious, do you have any recommendations for the American people, the American patriotic people right now who are on edge, biting nails, waiting for the next hammer to drop, and thinking that the elections aren't fair, so how to effectively fight this Marxist takeover of America? What's your recommendation?
Well, that's exactly the problem, is people don't trust the elections, and people have been shamed relentlessly since 2020 if they even want to talk about it or post about it on social media. I mean, Dominion has even sued people for wanting audits of their machines. It's like something you can't even talk about. But election integrity is the most important thing we have. If we don't have free and fair elections, then what do we have at this point? This is the kind of thing that happens in third world countries before they fall into a tyrannical dictatorship. Their elections are stolen, and then use government abuse and power become overlords of political enemies and the people. But what I have to say to people about the upcoming election in November is you better get in there and flood the polls. I mean, take everybody with you to vote. If you've never voted before, you better register and show up and vote, because sitting it out is like sitting on the sidelines watching a battle rage in front of you, and people that are sitting it out are pouting on the sidelines, refusing to get in there and fight. We have to fight, and the way we fight is we show up and we vote in November, and then Republicans are going to take back the House, and you're going to see a Republican Party you have never seen before. I am amazed at my colleagues, that even the ones that I get mad at, they are all coming around, and everyone is unifying together to stop this abuse of power, to stop this federal government that is a regime. It's an out-of-control regime, and I am amazed and excited to see our conference unifying over this and really, truly, finally being the Republican Party that's going to hold them accountable, and we have to do it. And the people that vote for us have to hold us accountable to do it. And so, people are scared, and we don't want to see anything happen like January 6th again. That would be the worst thing to happen. But we know for sure people are going to vote, and they need to vote like they never have voted before, and volunteer and watch our elections and make sure these elections get counted properly. Because this is a once in a lifetime chance to make sure that we defeat the regime before they completely take us over.
Last question, and I'm glad to hear that your description of your colleagues on Capitol Hill rallying behind the principles upon which America was based and bucking a little bit of this Democrat socialist takeover. But I wonder if you can comment on recent polls that show Americans are growing more and more secular and leaving the church pews behind. And given that our country is based on the idea of God-given rights, government only there to preserve and protect those rights, where's your optimism for the future if America continues down this secular path?
Well, I actually push back against that. Most people I know are returning to God.
Good.
And that's why I've talked about being a Christian nationalist. That's an identity I'm totally comfortable with, no matter how badly the left and the media try to slander me and lie about what I'm talking about. But everyone I know is truly returning to their faith, because look at our country. It's literally being ripped apart, and the people it's affecting most are our children. And people see it. We see it every day. And it all started when prayer was taken out of our schools and taken out of our institutions. And then it came to a point where they even began suing football coaches for praying on their fields. Yeah. And, I got to tell you, I am really just amazed at the revival I think that is happening in America that they don't want to talk about. They don't want people to know it's really happening. But I do believe that when America truly returns to God, and that will bring us back to the type of country we were founded to be. We were founded by men that were great believers in God and believers in His Word. And this doesn't isolate anyone. Being a Christian nation actually makes it a nation for all people of all religions and all identities, and it will become a nation that we were always intended to be. And then being a nationalist means we care about our country first, and we tell the rest of the world, you know what, you all can, if you can't take care of your own country, if you can't defend your own borders, you're not really a country to begin with. We got to stay at home. We've got to fix our problems here. We've got to defend our borders. We got to take care of our economy, and we really, most of all, have to protect our children, because the left is trying to destroy them from within, their identity, their souls, their hearts, and their minds, and they're trying to steal that away. And so, I keep saying this over and over, the Republican Party has to be the party that is very bold and courageous about protecting our kids, because if allowed to hold power.
Yep. And we should all wear that Christian Nationalist tag proudly because, as you point out, that is the core of American exceptionalism. Congresswoman
Absolutely.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, you're a rock star. Thank you so much for fighting for America, and thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be on Bold and Blunt.
Oh, thank you so much. I look forward to doing it again.
Absolutely. You know, whether you like Donald Trump or not, that's not even the point. The point here is individual liberties. The point here is God-given rights versus government-granted rights. Do you really want an America where government selects who gets rights versus who does not get rights? It's not that America's perfect. It's not that America's Constitution is perfect. It's not that the idea of God-given rights is perfect as it plays out in America, but it is the ideal. It is what we should all be searching for, fighting for. It should be a unifier, not a divider. It should be that all have a right to expect their law enforcement officials to uphold law and order, and that their government officials protect and preserve the Constitution and the system of law and order. And, at the very least, that federal law enforcement isn't weaponized for political reasons against private citizens. Thank you for listening. If you like Bold and Blunt, don't forget you can get Bold and Blunt at edify.app. That is the online platform for faith-based podcasts, at washingtontimes.com, or, of course, wherever podcasts are offered. And if you want to learn more about how the left really wants to steal America's individual liberties and crumble America from within, check out my latest book. It's called Lockdown, the Socialist Plan to Take Away Your Freedom. It's an eye-opener. It'll give you a compass to how the Democrats, in partnership with their globalists, are seeking to exploit the weak White House that we have right now and rush through this new world order, one world order, great reset, or as Joe Biden calls it, build back better agenda before someone like Donald Trump can run and win and fight for America again. Tune in next time, and in the meanwhile, don't forget, stay blunt, stay bold.